Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into something a little different. It's not about learning the basics of finance,
Yeah.
budgeting or picking stocks. It's about what happens after you've kind of mastered that.
hmm
What are the things that really hold us back from achieving wealth?
It's like we hit a certain point and then we get stuck.
Yeah,
And it's not about the technical stuff anymore. It's about something else.
right. And that's what we're going to unpack today. It's those sneaky mental blocks, the things that trip us up even when we know what we should be doing.
Exactly. And we've identified 5 key obstacles that we see time and time again.
Okay, lay them on us.
All right, so we've got fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and even arrogance.
Whoa, arrogance. That's a new one.
Oh, yeah. It's more common than you might think. We'll explore practical strategies, actionable steps, and inspiring stories of people who have successfully navigated these obstacles and achieved financial freedom.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's start with fear. That's something I think we can all relate to.
Absolutely. Everyone experiences fear when it comes to money.
Like that feeling when you're about to make a big investment and your hand just freezes over the mouse.
Exactly. Or think about someone who diligently saves every penny, but they're terrified to invest it.
They're so scared of losing it all.
Exactly. They keep it all in a low-yield savings account, knowing they're losing money to inflation. But the fear is just paralyzing.
So how do we overcome that fear? How do we find that balance between being cautious and taking calculated risks?
Well, first we have to understand that fear is a natural part of the process. Even experienced investors feel fear.
So it's not about eliminating fear altogether.
No, it's about managing it. It's about shifting from, what if I lose everything?
So how can I manage my risk?
Precisely.
So it's like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times,
Yeah,
but you get back up and eventually you're cruising.
exactly. Each mistake, each perceived failure is actually a learning opportunity.
It's data.
Exactly. You can use it to refine your approach and make smarter decisions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of letting fear paralyze us, we need to reframe it as feedback.
I love that. Feedback, not failure.
All right, let's move on to cynicism. This one feels like a close cousin to fear.
Absolutely. Cynicism can be just as debilitating. It's that voice in your head that says, it's all a scam, or it's too good to be true.
Oh, I know that voice. It's like that friend who refuses to try any new restaurant because they're convinced they'll be disappointed.
Yeah. Or that person who dismisses every investment opportunity as a bubble about to burst.
They end up missing out on incredible opportunities because they've already decided it's all rigged against them.
And just like that friend who sticks to their limited menu, the cynic might cling to a low-yield savings account.
Convinced that any attempt to grow their money will inevitably end in disaster.
Exactly.
So how do we combat that it's all a scam mentality?
It starts with awareness. We all have biases, and cynicism is often a defense mechanism. But instead of letting cynicism rule our decisions, we need to learn to analyze opportunities with a critical yet open mind.
So instead of immediately dismissing something as too good to be true, we dig a little deeper, do our research.
Precisely. Think of it like evaluating a potential partner.
Oh, I like this analogy.
You wouldn't just jump into a relationship based on a first impression. You'd want to get to know them, understand their values, their goals, their history.
You're doing your due diligence.
Exactly. Investing should be approached with the same level of discernment.
That's such a great analogy. It takes the abstract idea of analyzing investments and makes it something we can all relate to. Okay, on to obstacle number 3, laziness. Now, this one might feel a little harsh, but I think we can all relate to those moments when we just can't seem to get motivated to tackle our finances.
Oh, absolutely. Laziness, or as we often see it disguised as busyness.
Oh, it's good. Disguise busyness.
It's a major roadblock. We might tell ourselves we're too busy to create a budget, track our spending, or research investment options.
But deep down, we're just procrastinating.
Often, yes, it's that lack of motivation.
It's like knowing you should go to the gym, but finding every excuse to stay on the couch.
Exactly. We prioritize what feels easy and comfortable in the moment.
Even if it ultimately works against our long-term goals.
And when it comes to finances, this can mean staying stuck in a cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, feeling overwhelmed, and avoiding the very things that could help us break free.
So how do we kickstart that motivation, especially when dealing with something as potentially dry as personal finance?
One powerful strategy is to tap into our desires.
Or why?
Yes, what truly motivates us. Instead of focusing on what we should be doing, we need to ask ourselves, what do I want? What kind of life do I want to create?
So instead of, I should really start saving more, it becomes, I want to travel the world.
Or, I want to buy my dream home. I want to retire early.
Having that clear vision of what we're working towards can be incredibly motivating.
Absolutely. It's like training for a marathon. If you're only running because you feel like you should, it's easy to lose steam. But if you have that goal of crossing the finish line, that vision of accomplishment, it fuels you through those tough miles.
It gives you that why. So it's about connecting our financial goals to our deeper desires, our values, and our dreams. Okay, moving on to obstacle number 4, bad habits. We all have them, but when it comes to money, they can really sabotage our efforts.
Think about someone who consistently spends more than they earn,
Racking up credit card debt.
or someone who impulsively buys things they don't need, ending up with a closet full of clothes they never wear. These are bad habits that can keep us trapped in a cycle of financial stress.
It's like that friend who always complains about being broke, but then goes out and buys a new gadget every week. They know they should be saving, but they can't seem to break that spending habit.
It's a tough cycle to break.
So where do we even begin to tackle those bad habits?
The first step is identifying the specific habits that are holding us back. Are we overspending on certain categories? Are we neglecting to pay bills on time? Are we avoiding investing because it feels overwhelming? Once we've pinpointed the culprits, we can start to develop strategies to address them.
So if overspending is the issue, maybe it's creating a budget, tracking our spending, or setting limits on how much we can spend in certain categories.
Exactly. And if it's late payments, maybe it's setting up automatic bill pay or creating a system for keeping track of due dates.
It's about finding practical solutions that work for our individual needs and lifestyles.
And it's about being patient with ourselves. Breaking bad habits takes time and effort, but the rewards are well worth it.
It's about those small, consistent changes that, over time, lead to big transformations. Okay, finally, let's talk about that last obstacle, which might be the trickiest of them all: arrogance.
Arrogance, particularly in the realm of finance, can be incredibly dangerous.
Because it can lead to overconfidence.
Yes, reckless decision-making and a refusal to learn from mistakes.
It's like that person who thinks they know everything about investing, refuses to listen to any advice, and then ends up losing a ton of money in a bad investment.
We've all encountered those experts who seem to have all the answers, but their arrogance often masks a lack of true understanding.
So how do we check our egos at the door and approach investing with a healthy dose of humility?
It starts with recognizing that we don't know everything.
And that's okay.
It is. It's about embracing a growth mindset, being open to new information, and constantly seeking to expand our knowledge and understanding.
So instead of trying to prove how much we know, we focus on learning.
Yes, asking questions, on seeking guidance from those who have more experience.
It's about being curious, not closed off.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating our successes, but also learning from our mistakes.
Every setback, every loss is an opportunity to refine our approach
And to gain valuable insights.
and become better investors.
Precisely.
You know, I think what's really fascinating about these 5 obstacles is that they're not just financial challenges.
Oh, absolutely not.
They're life challenges.
They are. The same mindset that holds us back financially can also limit us in other areas of our lives.
Fear can prevent us from pursuing our dreams. Cynicism can drain our joy. Laziness can keep us stuck in a rut. Bad habits can sabotage our health and relationships. And arrogance can isolate us from others.
That's so true. It's all connected.
It's like realizing that the same tools we use to build wealth discipline, resilience, a growth mindset, a willingness to learn, are also the tools we need to build a fulfilling and successful life.
Exactly. And that's what makes this conversation so important.
We're not just talking about money.
We're talking about creating a life of abundance, joy, and purpose.
But now let's talk about the solutions. How do we actually overcome these challenges and start creating the financial future we desire? We talked about how fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance can really hold us back, even when we understand the basics of finance.
Right. It's not enough to just know the stuff. You have to actually put it into practice.
Exactly. So let's dig into some solutions. Well, earlier we talked about reframing fear as feedback, like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times.
Right. But you get back up, you learn from those falls, and eventually you're riding without even thinking about it.
So it's about taking action, even if it's scary at first.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to reduce fear is to increase your knowledge.
So educate yourself about investing, learn about different strategies, understand how risk management works.
Yeah. The more you know, the less scary it becomes.
That's like anything else. The more you understand something, the less intimidating it is.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to start small. You don't have to go all in on the stock market right away.
You can dip your toes in with something like a low-risk index fund or a robo-advisor.
Those are great options for beginners. They allow you to get started without feeling overwhelmed. And as you learn and gain confidence, you can gradually increase your risk and explore other investment opportunities.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've got education and taking action, even small steps. What else can we do to tackle fear?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are so many resources available, like financial advisors, mentors, online communities.
Yeah, you don't have to do this alone.
Exactly. Find people who can support you, guide you, and answer your questions.
Okay, so we've got some solid strategies for dealing with fear. Now, what about cynicism? How do we overcome that it's all a scam mentality?
Well, cynicism often stems from a lack of trust, right? Trust in the financial system, trust in experts, maybe even trust in ourselves.
It's like that feeling when you see a too good to be true deal, you immediately assume there's a catch.
And sometimes there is. But we can't let that cynicism prevent us from exploring opportunities that could potentially benefit us.
So how do we find that balance between healthy skepticism and just being a total cynic?
I think it's about shifting our mindset from distrust to discernment. Instead of assuming the worst, train yourself to approach information with a critical but open mind.
Like that saying, trust but verify.
Exactly. Don't just blindly accept everything you hear, but don't automatically dismiss it either. Do your research, ask questions, seek out multiple perspectives.
And don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions. We all have biases, and sometimes those biases can cloud our judgment.
It's so true. If you find yourself immediately dismissing an opportunity, take a step back. Ask yourself, why am I so skeptical? What evidence do I have to support this belief?
And be open to changing your mind. If you do your research and find that an opportunity is legitimate, don't let your initial cynicism hold you back.
Okay, let's move on to laziness, or as we've been calling it, disguised busyness.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. We all have those moments when we just can't seem to find the motivation to deal with our finances.
It's so easy to put things off, especially when they feel overwhelming or unpleasant.
But the truth is, we make time for what's important to us. So if we're constantly pushing our finances to the back burner, it might be a sign that we haven't fully connected them to our values and goals.
I love that. Remember the analogy of training for a marathon. If you don't have a strong why, it's easy to skip those early morning runs.
But if you're driven by a desire to cross that finish line, to prove to yourself that you're capable of achieving something challenging, then you're more likely to find the motivation to get out there and do the work.
Absolutely. So, how do we apply that to our finances? How do we make managing our money feel as important as that marathon goal?
I think it starts with connecting our finances to our dreams and aspirations. What do we want our money to help us achieve? Is it financial freedom, travel, early retirement, supporting our families?
Those are powerful motivators. Once we have that clear vision in mind, we can start breaking down our financial goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of our financial goals, focus on taking one small action today.
Maybe it's creating a budget, setting up an automatic savings plan, or researching a potential investment. Whatever it is, make it something achievable that moves you closer to your larger goals.
And don't forget to celebrate those small wins. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth acknowledging.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to bad habits.
Ooh, this is another area where I know I could use some work. We all have those spending patterns that aren't exactly serving us.
It's so true. But the good news is that habits can be changed. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to be honest with ourselves.
So where do we start?
Well, the first step is awareness. What are the specific habits that are holding us back? Are we impulse shoppers? Do we overspend on dining out or entertainment? Are we neglecting to save or invest regularly?
Once we've identified those bad habits, what's next?
Well, then it's about finding strategies to interrupt those patterns and replace them with more positive behaviors.
So, for example, if impulse shopping is the issue, maybe it's unsubscribing from tempting email lists, leaving your credit cards at home when you go shopping, or implementing a waiting period before making any big purchases.
Those are great examples. And if overspending on dining out is a problem, maybe it's committing to cooking at home more often or setting a monthly budget for restaurant meals.
And what about those of us who struggle with saving or investing consistently?
Well, in that case, automating your savings can be incredibly helpful. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings or investment accounts each month.
It's like paying yourself first. Make those savings contributions a non-negotiable part of your budget.
Exactly. And over time, those small, consistent contributions will add up.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's tackle the last obstacle, arrogance.
Arrogance. This one can be particularly tricky because it often disguises itself as confidence.
Right, it's like that person who always has to be right, even when they're clearly wrong.
And in the world of finance, that kind of arrogance can be dangerous. It can lead to some pretty costly mistakes.
So how do we cultivate humility when it comes to our finances?
It starts with recognizing that we don't know everything, and that's okay. The financial world is complex and constantly changing, so there's always more to learn.
It's about embracing a growth mindset, being open to new information, and seeking out different perspectives.
Yes. And surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, people who can challenge your assumptions and help you see things from different angles.
So instead of trying to be the smartest person in the room, find people you can learn from.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are so many resources available, financial advisors, mentors, online communities. It's about acknowledging our limitations and seeking out support when we need it.
And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Don't let arrogance prevent you from admitting when you're wrong and learning from your mistakes.
That's a great point. We all make mistakes. It's how we grow and get better.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of great strategies for overcoming these 5 obstacles. But how do we actually put this into practice? What are some specific actions our listeners can take? It's been a really great deep dive so far. We've really unpacked these 5 obstacles to wealth.
Yeah, and most importantly, we've talked about some really practical strategies for overcoming them.
Because at the end of the day, it's not enough to just understand these obstacles. We have to actually do something about them.
Exactly. Knowledge without action is useless.
So let's leave our listeners with some concrete takeaways, some actions they can take today to start moving forward.
Sounds great. Where should we start?
Well, let's go back to fear. If fear is holding you back, what's one thing you can do right now to start tackling that?
I'd say commit to educating yourself. Spend even just 30 minutes today reading an article or watching a video about a financial topic that interests you.
That's a great starting point. Just that little bit of knowledge can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And if cynicism is your biggest challenge, try approaching a potential opportunity with an open mind. Instead of immediately dismissing it, do a little research. See if it aligns with your goals and values.
Yeah, be curious, not closed off.
Exactly. And if you're struggling with laziness, set a timer for 15 minutes and tackle one financial task you've been putting off.
Like creating a budget, checking your credit score, or organizing your financial documents. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Just take that first step.
It's all about building momentum. Now, for bad habits, think about one specific habit you want to change and come up with a plan to address it.
So if you're an impulse shopper, maybe you unsubscribe from tempting email lists or leave your credit cards at home when you go shopping. Little things like that can make a big difference.
They really can. And finally, if arrogance is tripping you up, consider reaching out to a mentor or a financial advisor, someone who can provide guidance and a different perspective.
Remember, there's always more to learn, and asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Couldn't agree more. And those are our 5 takeaways for overcoming the obstacles to wealth.
It's been such a great conversation, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take action.
I hope so too. Remember, building wealth is a journey, not a destination.
It's about making consistent progress day by day and celebrating those small wins along the way.
Exactly. And we're here to support you every step of the way.
So be sure to subscribe, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for that life of abundance.
See you next time.